share my screen. There you go. That's better. Sorry for the little delay here. Good morning, lovely people. Good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. This is Maria Leslie with another Upswell Grief interview. And this morning, I am so excited. As many of you know, I've been sick, but I did not want to miss this interview because I've literally been counting down the days to bring you this amazing, amazing lady next to me. Please meet the lovely Jessi Lestelle. And Jessi, I'm going to get you to quickly introduce yourself to the audience before we get further into our discussion. Welcome and thank you for being here.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And it's about 7 o'clock my time in Atlanta. So we're about getting ready to go to sleep. But I love being able to talk to different audiences. So thank you so much for having me. So a little bit about me. I am 26, kind of young, but at the age of 25, I had lost my entire immediate family. Various reasons, cancer, overdose, suicide, things like that. But my journey didn't stop there, unfortunately. I ended up losing multiple family members, friends, and let's not forget our pets that we really rely on when it comes to grief. So I realized after losing my entire family that there had to be some kind of strange reason why I was still here. And so I created a podcast called Good Grief, Jessi, where I talk about my struggles, my triumphs, and my failures through my journey of grief. Also talking about anxiety, depression, and PTSD, all things that I've been diagnosed with. So, and you never know, I make people laugh a lot. I make people uncomfortable, but I also make people laugh when it comes to the podcast. So I'm so glad to be here. And I've definitely checked out a lot of your stuff, and I'm so excited to collaborate with you on this today. So thank you again.
No, thank you so much for being here. I was really, really excited because I want to backtrack a little bit and actually tell people how we met. So there's this platform that I mentioned a couple of times before that is called Podmatch. So that is where potential interview partners can meet, and I came across your podcast, Good Grief, Jessi, and I just really, really loved what I heard. Like, I was instantly quite drawn to you, to your story. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a perfect match. And I've just had my interview with you, and I said, you have to come to my audience. I'd really love to introduce you. I'd love to share your story, your podcast, everything that you stand for, because it is so rare to meet somebody who is so young like you. And you were 25 when you had lost your entire immediate family. And to meet somebody who has gone through something like that and has come out on the other side so positive and doing things that really make an impact and have such an impact in so many people's lives around the world. So that to me, I just instantly felt very aligned, only that you are way younger. And, it's not a competition. It's not what it is about. I didn't want to make this point, but it's just, I really felt so drawn to you, and I wanted to share a few things here that I feel are very, very inspiring. So walk us through the process, Jessi, because, obviously, I believe you said there was a time frame of like 7 years where all these losses occurred. Is that right?
Correct. I didn't lose everybody all at once, but over a year, luckily, over a span of 7 years, I lost my entire immediate family. So it all started when I was 19.
Incredible. Yeah. And talk us through that, if that's okay. Can you give us a bit of a, bullet point journey of those 7 years? Like, how did you even get through all of that? Because I can only imagine that at the beginning, you would have had friends and family help you through that process, or at least be there with you through that time. And then one by one, you lost all of them. So this is, for me, completely unimaginable. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I was 18, it was my freshman year of college, and my dad, this was in May 1st, he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and all over his body. It was completely undetected, had no idea. And my birthday's in May. So in between then I turned 19. And then 2 weeks later, my dad had a series of strokes and ended up passing away because of the cancer. And that was my first.
So very fast. Very fast.
Very, that's very incredible. Fast. He passed away June 3rd. Wow. So I literally got a month and a few days with him. Yeah. And I can't lie to you and tell you that I did okay during that time. I turned to alcohol, and it got to the point where my brother was a little concerned about me. My brother never really shared a concern about anything I did, but he was my only sibling, and he struggled a lot with my dad's passing as well. And a year and a half after my dad passed away, my brother accidentally overdosed on fentanyl. It was one of the first cases here in our hometown of a fentanyl overdose. So that was great. Love to be a statistic here, but so that really changed who I was, and it kind of woke me up, but it also challenged me. It challenged me to figure out who I really was without my sibling. We were very close, and everything that we did together. Our hobbies were very similar. Our likes and dislikes were always similar. And so I had to basically start over and figure out who is Jessi. And at this time, I'm going through college, I'm working full time, and I'm here with my mom, and I'm struggling to be strong for her, while also dealing with the loss of my brother. Unfortunately, only 4 months later, my uncle, who was my dad's closest brother, who didn't have any kids and viewed me and my brother as his kids, he committed suicide. And that was, it was very disheartening, very sad, but also he was in a lot of physical pain as well as emotional pain after losing my dad. So that was really, it was very strange to juggle those feelings of hurt and grief losing him, but also understanding that sometimes people don't see a way out of physical pain or mental emotional pain. So I struggled a lot with that. Luckily, the next loss that I had, it was my dad's mother, who was my grandmother, who was the heart of the Lestelle family. She passed away peacefully. Yes, she was surrounded by her friends and family and her daughters and her children. It was a beautiful experience. And it's hard to describe grief or death as beautiful, especially here in America, because it's something that we only get like maybe 5 days bereavement for if someone dies. But that's a different topic for a different time. But losing my grandmother was a really beautiful experience for me. And I think of it fondly, and I just hope that I can go out the same way.
Can I need to pause you here for 1 second. I really want to highlight that, because I remember last year I had an interview with James Hendricks, and his background is Mexican, and we talk about the cultural differences, how some cultures really celebrate the person's life rather than going into pain and hurt and loss, and I really love that you said. I really enjoyed that process of watching my grandmother pass over with the whole family around her, and it's really beautiful. I really like that you say that, because it's incredible, especially after everything that you have gone through and at your young age, to be in a space to actually see that. So I really want to highlight that. It's just really incredible. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing
it was, I don't want to say a highlight of my journey, but it was definitely better than what I had already experienced. That's for sure.
I understand exactly what you mean.
And so I was, after getting hit one right after the other, I finally was like, okay, I can kind of calm down and start to grieve properly instead of having to start over each time I would start the process.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. My mom got diagnosed with a rare cancer called leiomyosarcoma, and it's a soft tissue cancer. And she got diagnosed with that 2 months after my grandmother passed away. Fortunately enough, we were able to spend about 4 years together, just living the best life we could, me being there for her. And in 2021, I keep forgetting what year it is. March 2nd, 2021, she passed away. And I was there. I was her caregiver because she was at in-home hospice and she fought until the end. And I was there when she took her last breath. And it was another really inspiring moment for me in my life, because when somebody passes, it's proven to be one of the most loneliest times in someone's life, because no one is around that's comfortable enough to be there and talk to them. It's very uncomfortable. People are probably wondering, like, what do you even say to someone who's dying? And you say things that you say memories, you say that you love them, and you say these comforting things to help them pass. And to be able to do that for my mother was the greatest honor in my life. And then I realized, okay, now that everyone's gone, why am I still here? And
before we go there, though, I want to ask you something. I'm going to get you right back to that spot, because I am so grateful, Jessi, that we are having this conversation, because in our little pre-chat you said there's no taboos, just please ask me whatever, and I really, really value that, because I'm the same. I'm an open book. I'm like, let's have these conversations, and we both agreed that it is so important that we have more of these really open and honest conversations about what is going on and how can we handle this. So with that being said, I'd really would love to I'd love to know what was your highlight, and I know that sounds full on to ask it that way, but what was your highlight in that passing over of your mom's? Because at that stage, you had experienced so many different forms of losses, and you had experienced so many different ways of dealing with it. And I believe at that stage, you were at a very different level to at the beginning, where you said you turned to alcohol and it was really hard for you. And I think you must have had a very conscious awareness of what is going to happen with your mom at that stage, because she's been fighting for 4 years. And to have that with your background is probably very, very different to those who never have experienced loss, and then all of a sudden their mom dies. So can you share a little bit about these last few moments with your mom? And thank you for letting me ask you this, because I know that it is really confronting. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because you only just had your 1 year anniversary.
Yes, wow. It was only a few weeks ago, and I celebrated that day with my season 2 of the podcast.
Amazing.
When you go through so much, you change the anniversaries into something that is meaningful to you.
Absolutely.
So to go to your question, the highlight of being there for my mom was that I, for once in my life, was able to make a decision that I knew that I was going to be so happy to live with. And that was to really get out of my comfort zone. Because I can't lie to you and tell you that I just hopped into bed with her, and was like, here, Mom, let me read you a story. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I was so uncomfortable, because there's a term that I like to use, and it goes for not only dealing with death, but any type of grief. It's called anticipatory grief, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's anticipating grief.
Yeah.
And we deal a lot with that, especially with cancer and COVID and that going on. We are anticipating these loved ones for their journey to end.
Yeah.
And I spent my 4 years preparing myself for this moment. And that sounds tormenting. And it was. It was really hard to
was at this
sit
stage
here.
It was just you and your mom.
It was, I knew that there was going to be a time in my life where I didn't have my mom anymore. And I had to prepare for that. And when I knew that my mom was getting close to passing, I just remember feeling so nervous going up to her room and laying in bed with her and turning on some music and just talking to her. And it was so uncomfortable and I didn't know what to say, but I did it. And I knew that if I didn't do it, that I wouldn't have been satisfied with what I had prepared for. So the highlight was really stepping out of my comfort zone and doing something for not only me, but for my mother in her final moments. Was
she at home in her final moments, or was she in hospital?
She was actually in this house because this is where we grew up. She was at home in her bed, and we just listened to music and just talked. And it's people are like, you're just talking to her and she's not talking back. But they know.
Oh yeah,
they
absolutely
know. There's there's confirmation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for sharing this. This is really something that not many of us get to experience, in particular not in such a beautiful and peaceful setting. A lot of us either never have the chance to experience that in a peaceful way, and even if we do experience it, it often happens in a hospital, with machines hanging everywhere and like really in a very rather cold setting. And so I think it is sort of a gift in adversity as well to be able to have those last moments together. And was it just you and your mom?
Yes, ma'am. It sure was. It was just me and her. And, I think about how my dad passed away and he was in the hospital and he was alone. And I remember not wanting to leave his side, but my mom didn't want me to have to go through that at such a young age, only to have to go through it with her. So, thanks, Mom. But
well, you were a little bit older then, but still,
it's
the irony.
Being able to have, and my mom was also she was also really good at making me uncomfortable with her death as well when she was living. So it was also, we always had conversations of, what she wanted, what her wishes were, where everything was that I needed, what to do, and, what were left up to me, what decisions were left up to me. And I think that was so important to have those conversations with your loved ones. And it was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable, Marie. I can't, now.
I'm really glad that you're saying that, Jessi, not just to have the conversations, but that it is so uncomfortable, because we all know that we need to have more conversations like that. And I mean, when I look at my own case, like I'm glad that Rob and I had a few chats about, what would happen if, but there were no preparations, there were no plans, because we didn't have that time. He passed from a brain aneurysm and it was like that. There was no preparation, there was no knowing beforehand, or at least not a very conscious knowing. And it was just that, that's a whole other story, but just knowing what your loved one would want really, really helps. It gives you a peace of mind. It gives you it gives you some direction and some ideas on where to even start. Like when you have a story like that, there is so much to think about. It's very overwhelming, and I'm really grateful that you're sharing this, because it is important that we're having these conversations. But yes, you admittedly say it is super uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable talking to your loved ones about dying and what if and what do they want. And I'm grateful that you did. I really am grateful to your mom as well that she did. And yeah. So when your mom passed, how did you deal with her death differently to what you've done before? Because you talked about anxiety, depression, alcohol. We haven't even touched on that yet, where in that story it came in and where it left again, because you've been through a phenomenal journey in terms of picking yourself up. So share a little bit about that path.
When my mom died, I was working in the music industry. I graduated with a bachelor's in music and entertainment business. The music industry is where I wanted to be.
Well done.
So imagine going through that entire journey of losing your family, but also going to college. Like, if college wasn't already hard enough.
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't gonna have children in time. I knew I wasn't gonna get married in time, but dang it, I was gonna get that degree. I was gonna show my mom that I did it.
Yeah.
I was gonna have one thing in life. So that helped. But I was in artist management, and I took 2 weeks off because they allowed me 2 weeks off. And
2 weeks, how generous.
That's actually more than where other places
more than the 5 days. Yeah.
So I took 2 weeks off, and then I came back, and it was, when you go through such a traumatic experience, I always say, brain no worky no more, because it didn't. My brain didn't keep up with where I left off. It was so traumatized from what I had just experienced, even though I just described it as a peaceful and intimate experience, but it was still traumatizing to lose,
of course,
everyone. So I ended up having to leave the music industry, and I still haven't gone back. I took until July, so I would say 7 or 8 months. I took time to really grieve. At first I kicked and screamed the process of, feeling these awful emotions and feeling overwhelmed and anxious and just so depressed. So depressed, knowing that, I missed out on so much in my life, and I'm going to continue to miss out on special opportunities with my family. And that's okay. It just wasn't meant for me. But I finally accepted it, and I started healing. I started to make that change in my life, and it sucked. It hurt. It hurt to really allow those emotions to come out and that grief to come out. I got into therapy. I started taking medication, and I started healing. And it was one of the, like you said, healing is a choice. And it is absolutely 100% a choice. And it is hard. It is a hard choice to make, because it is facing the hard facts that your loved one is gone, or you feel alone. It's accepting that. But it is 100% a choice. And after I went through that, I found my purpose was like, hey, I'm here to help people and I started the podcast, and I've been doing the podcast ever since.
So when did you actually start the podcast?
July 30th.
That was last year, yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
July
yes,
30th,
July
2021. 30th. Wow. Incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so tell us how did that process come about? So you went obviously through a very, very intense process of healing. And as we know, you said it, I love that. Healing is a choice, yes, absolutely, but it is also a process, and it takes time, and it comes in waves, and it's absolutely okay, for you to actually, again, I have to say that at such a young age, and after having lost your entire immediate family, to get to a point where you are in such a conscious decision, as in, I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get therapy. I was put on medication and I was healing. And that is a very, very conscious process and conscious choice that you made to go through that process, to allow yourself to go through that. And for that, I want to say massive kudos to you, because
thank you.
I'm not even seriously, I'm not even sure if I did or didn't share that with you, but I was 20 when I lost my dad, and I was not equipped to deal with it at all. I had no idea how to handle it. And you said the same thing. You were only 19 when you lost him. I was 20. I literally just turned 20. So it was literally a year after you, age-wise. And it's that whole thing, like at that stage, you are officially an adult, but you still really need your parents around at that stage, and
yes.
Many would agree, you probably need them to the rest of your life, and there's never a good time to lose them.
No.
But there is this process of having to grow up faster than others. I don't know, do you agree with that? It's like we just grow up differently, there are those kids, as you said, they're all going off to college. College is hard enough anyway. I did my advertising college at the time, and it was halfway through. It was a 2-year college that I did, and then I had to go back to school. I had another year, and I still remember how many teachers really just carried me through this 1 year to make it to the end, which I'm really super, super excited about. But it was just, you went from this whole not knowing how to cope with losing someone whatsoever, and as you said, you even turned to alcohol, to then 7 years later come out on the other spectrum of how to deal with loss and make that choice. And that is really something I can't congratulate you enough on that, because it really takes so much growing up and so much learning and decision making within yourself. It really takes you to grow up faster than others. And I can tell when I look at you, you don't come across like somebody at that
like
age.
A kid.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call him a kid, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, and it's really, you have grown up heaps, and it really shows. And so tell us about this process of, okay, you're going through the healing, you're seeing your therapist, and at what stage did you go like, I need to do a podcast, how did you get to start this?
So I have my associate's degree in public speaking. Surprise. But it was one of those things where I was a jack of all trades, master of none, but there was one thing that I was good at, and it was speaking in front of large audiences. The anxiety, I work well under pressure. And it was the one thing that I just really enjoyed doing. And I thought to myself, well, I can do like a video vlog where I sit here and talk about grief, but I'm lazy and I hate editing any kind of video. It is awful. And I just remember I was like, oh, well, how do I get a small message to a large audience? How do I do that? And I just was like, a podcast. And so I sat there and did my research, read my books, and found out, where I like my purpose, like, why I was doing the podcast, what it was going to be about, all that, the whole process. And I think the hardest part for me when starting the podcast was actually my first episode. And it's not just because it was my first episode, but it was because I was telling my story. And it was the first time that my story was going to be complete,
live and public and
live
and complete.
And complete. And because it's always been like, oh, this jumbled up series that happened in my brain, but having it out in an actual timeline for people to understand and follow, that was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
And but after I got past that, I did like test episodes, and I thought to myself, well, if I put in half the effort and it fails, then, you know, I'm not going to feel so hard on myself for, you know, not putting everything in it, and just, you know, I'll go back to the music industry, no problem. But if I put in 50% and it turns out really well, imagine what I could do if I put 100% into it. And so I was like, that was the mindset. I was prepared to fail, but also I can't even lie to you, I was not prepared to succeed. I was prepared to fail. And I obviously did a lot better than I thought I was gonna do, and I'm still here. And
please don't sound surprised, because nobody else who's watching this is surprised at all.
I'm surprised because a lot of people, they knew my story, but they were like, she must, you know, she has some kind of like superpower. Like someone called me Batman, and I was like, well, you know what? That's probably how I am doing so well, is because I saved the world, one episode at a time.
I love it.
But that was the podcast was, how do I get a small message to a large audience? And now I have people listening all over the world that reach out to me. And I mean, prime example right here, me and you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. And it's really, when you see your hard work and your heart go into a project and it turns out okay, it really gives you the strength to keep going. And I couldn't do it. I call my listeners my grievers, because we're all grieving in some way. You know, we're still in a pandemic.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we are all grieving, and we're not alone in this journey. So
Jessi, I knew that we would go a little bit over time with you, but I don't care at this stage. I just really love sitting here talking to you, and I know we're already past our cutoff, but here's two things I'd like to ask you to conclude this. First of all, I'd really love for you to share where people can find you, and fear not, we will be putting the links underneath the video so you can actually find it. But tell us again, what is the best way for people to find you?
So my website is my baby, and so is my podcast, but everything can be found on my website, Good Grief Jessi, JESSI.com. And I also am on LinkedIn as my personal name, Jessi Lestelle. I am on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Discord, if any of your followers are on Discord, just by the tag of Good Grief Jessi. And you can find me there. And I'm also on any platform you get your podcast on. If you ever see a logo with goofy letters and a flowering or a green background that says Good Grief Jessi, that's me.
That's you. Perfect. That's me. Can you please leave us with some sort of final statement, anything that you would like to share? Because I know that you've got such wisdom for your young age, and just to also encourage those viewers who are sitting there thinking, but I'm so young and I've got my entire life ahead of me and they don't even know where to get started. What would you like to say to the younger audience? Because usually we get people that are around my age, and And I've never actually thought about that until I had you here. And I'm like, I think you are the youngest interviewee that I ever had here. So I just wanted to really take that opportunity and address our younger audience, because we do have a lot of young people in our group as well. That makes me sound so old when I say that. I take it all back. What's your final statement that you would like to share with us, Jessi?
So for your younger viewers, it's already hard enough for us out there, and these added features in life, you know, we don't ask for them, but it's how we come out on top is how we progress in life. And I think this can also go for your older viewers as well, or they're not older, they're
thank you,
you know. I'm an old soul, so but the one thing that always kept me going is there's always somebody out there counting on you to break through of whatever you're going through, whether it's your battle with anxiety or depression or your grief. There's always somebody out there counting on you to break through. And if you feel like there isn't, then that person should always be you. That someone is you.
I love that.
Is counting on you.
Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. And I think the most beautiful part looking at you is that when we go through something, there's always a next step to then share it with others and teach others or be an example for others. And that's really beautiful. So it really comes back to being the example that you want to see in the world, you know, and you so are. I am so freaking proud of you, really, like just looking at you.
Thank you so much.
It's incredible. I was so blown away by you the moment I met you, and I'm really, really grateful that you came here today, that you gave us your time, and I'm absolutely certain that we will stay connected. So thank you so much for being here today, Jessi. And for everybody else out there, you're welcome. We'll be sharing the links where you can get in touch with Jessi underneath the video here. So have a beautiful day, evening, morning, wherever you are in this world. This is Jessi and Marie signing off. Bye for now. Thank you.